All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Truth on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network. And I am sitting here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Chris Powell. And we got some stuff to talk about this week, Chris.
We do.
We're
got a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Fall Super Stakes. We're going to talk about some things we've seen on the old interwebs. And we're going to go through some rules and some questions that I've gotten through my email here in the last couple of weeks. So where you want to start off? You want to start off Super Stakes?
Well, I thought we'd start off by, you see this little icon right down here at the bottom of the screen? It looks like a microphone.
Uh-huh.
If you're going to get up and start yelling at Brogan or kids or whatever, hit that button. It saves me some time in editing.
It ain't Brogan. It's Bogan.
Bogan. Whatever.
You know
what's that? I forget what that means. You said it.
That is Australian slang for white trash. He is an Australian cattle dog, and we're white trash, so I thought that would be pretty fitting for you.
That is pretty fitting. I like it.
I take a lot of pride in my naming.
Yeah, I try to do the same thing. I try to make them mean something.
What really sucks is when you go through one of the best names and the dog don't make it.
Oh man, I hate that.
I've
reused some.
Yeah.
If nobody knew about them.
Yeah.
You know, I just reuse them.
I haven't reused any of, but all my names, other than all my coonhound names, have a music theme. You know, I like Con. What people don't understand is we had two of those, him and his littermate brother, and their names were Ground Control and Major Tom. Mm-hmm. And then we had, of course, Delta Dawn, Rhythm.
I thought one of them was going to be named Shaka and the other one was named Con.
I thought about that. That would have been good too. And then Rhythm her name was She's Got Rhythm, or Get Rhythm. I'm sorry, they changed it whenever I sold her, but her name was Get Rhythm. So yeah, we do music themes. Jagger was one of my other ones. I've had a bunch of them.
Yeah, yep. I use Blazing Saddles theme on one.
Yeah, my uncle does everything. Every dog he names comes off Lonesome Dove.
Yeah, that's a good movie to pick from too.
It is.
Yep, Newt. Gus.
Yep, he's had all those.
Yep, P.I.
Yep. Yeah, you name it. He's gonna.
Hell bitch.
Yeah, he had one female. Yeah, and she was promptly named that.
Yeah,
that was it. She sucked. And she was
bites you every time you try to go to the tree.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had we take pride in our names.
Yep, good.
We don't name them numbers like the blue tick guys do. They're only original enough to think of one name, and then they got to put a number behind it.
Yeah. Not my game.
You don't like it either, do you?
No.
How many hammers did they have?
I think they're up to 74.
Gee,
I don't know. I don't know where they're at.
I wouldn't doubt it. They were all Roman numerals too, so it was like the Super Bowl. I don't know what effing Super Bowl I'm at. I don't speak Roman.
I'll have to check Ken Herman's page. He kind of took over that whole hammer stuff. I'll see what number he's up to. But I was thinking
Dave had to have at least 20.
He did. He did. 20. And I think I saw a dog on Ken's page that was 27.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Do they name them all Hammer like a call name?
I don't know. I don't know.
They have a different call name.
I couldn't even tell you.
Hey, I got one other question for you.
Yeah.
I was reading the Plot Days deal for the newscast on Monday. And what pedigree or what championship is CCH?
What pedigree?
Or what's a championship? It's like Water Champions WCH, Night Champions NTCH.
Is it a confirmation champion?
Maybe. I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
I bet it is. CCH I bet it's confirmation champion. Lauren would know. I think she there's a difference between like show champion and confirmation champion. I don't know the differences in
well, I assume the show champion or the confirmation champion probably ain't on a bench. It's probably walked around, all that stuff. Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I already know. I don't know. I put my foot in my mouth last week or Wednesday with some misinformation about X-Bred, so I'm not going to dive into that one until I know.
What was your misinformation on the X-Bred?
I made a statement during the podcast that X-Bred had to be two dogs with, they could be different breeds. They just needed to have pedigrees from each side. UKC pedigrees, and I guess that's incorrect. I haven't verified it yet.
I thought that was correct.
I don't know.
I don't know. They can just be different breeds, is what I thought.
They can be different breeds, but evidently they don't need a pedigree either. So.
Oh, that may be. I know that's the way PKC is with their crossbred
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I registered several mountain curs that actually had pedigrees, but since the ancestors were not PKC registered, they just came back as crossbred instead of mountain cur.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought they had to be UKC registered parents.
I did too.
They could be a different breed, and then they were X-bred.
Yeah, I did too. That's what I always thought. But Lauren sent me a message and set me straight. So.
One thing about when you say something wrong on one of these,
Lauren will tell you.
Yeah. Well,
she's not afraid.
There's a lot of people that'll tell you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But when you stand corrected, you just got to own up to it.
That's right. I'm here to take my whipping.
Yep.
Thank you very much. May I have another?
There you go. Let's talk about Super Stakes, pal.
Do it, man.
That is something that we bring up on The Truth a lot. You look at all our, we're getting ready to talk about Ryan Croson anyway, I'm sure. But, we talk about he's a Super Stakes champion. And that's a title that there's 2 Super Stakes a year, spring and fall. There are 3 to 4 divisions, actually, if you count the baby stakes. The baby stakes, like Mr. Jason Doherty said, the plaque says Super Stakes champion on it, and so that's a Super Stakes champion as well.
Right.
And so there's 4 divisions, 2 a year. So there's actually 8 Super Stakes champions crowned every year.
That's right, spring and fall.
Yeah, and it's still very prestigious.
You bet.
And so we're coming up into the fall Super Stakes. It is going to be on, looks like September 19th through the 24th. It's going to be in Salem, where all the major stuff is usually held. And there's 3 divisions of the week-long deal. The babies only hunt Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm sorry. And then the seniors, juniors, and sophomores hunt Monday through Saturday, with the finals being on Saturday. And so you're looking at 3 divisions, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, usually. And I think their birthday is October 1st until May 1st. That's when they have to be born. And so the best spring birthday is May 1st. The best fall birthday is October 1st. I think it's October. Maybe it's November.
November.
Yeah, I think it's November.
It's November 1st.
Right. And so
Jazz has actually had she's actually had almost 3 perfect birthday litters.
Yeah.
She's
I had 3 in a row too, but they were all spring pups. They're all really good springs.
The last couple times they've been spring pups, but like Mongo's litter, they were born November 2nd.
I hear tale that Mongo's going to go down to Kentucky for a little bit. He's going to go down and get tuned up by Jason Doherty for a couple weeks because Chad hasn't been able to be hunting since he's hurt.
That will be a good thing for him.
Yeah, I talked to Chad. I talked to Chad last week, and he had asked me about Jason because he knew that we knew each other, and I told him that Jason would treat his dog good, and Jason will be honest about what the dog is, and I would not be afraid to send a dog down to Jason Doherty to hunt for a couple weeks.
I'll be curious to see what comes of that and his evaluation of that dog. Of all the pups that I've seen out of Big Country, he has been the closest to what he was. He's a little more open on the ground, but he's got the same mannerisms. He's got the same, he acts the same in the kennel. He treats coons the same. There's a lot of things about him that when you hunt him and you get to know him, you know where he came from. There's no doubt about it.
And that was Country's first litter, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he is out
we made that.
Jazz.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we made that cross right here at my house. We kind of took a risk breeding him that young. But
I say because he's 6 now, Mongo. Is he that
Man,
old?
is he that old?
I think
he may be.
He's 5 or 6, I think.
I think he's 5.
Yeah, he may be.
I think he's 5. Yeah.
But he's up there in the frozen tundra and hasn't got a chance at a lot of these major events.
They don't. I mean, that was the downfall when Chad bought him. He's right up there on the fringe of he's too far away to really get him out there in PKC, and he's got great hunting. I mean, it's awesome up there, but he's out of the mainstream up there. You know, if he was down here where he could go 20 miles in any direction and hit a hunt any night he wanted, then it'd be a lot different deal.
I know,
but he's a super accurate dog.
I've talked to you, of course, and then Strickland has hunted with him, and Chad, and I've heard nothing but good reports from the dog. And the guy could break him out, maybe get him in at a couple pro classics, and he would be that behind the barn Coondog that everybody talks about. But he's a known commodity. Yeah. We know he's out there.
Right.
And I
offered to come out of retirement and bring him down here and bite the bullet and start just because he's out of our stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see him succeed, and I couldn't close the deal. And I really wasn't that committed anyway.
And we were the same way. Like I would like to get the dog and get him in some pro classics too. And Jed had mentioned interest in him, but at his age, we've got 3 others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if he was a 2-year-old and we were going into Super Stakes, you know, I'd be on it right now. Well, we've got 3 older dogs that we're already competing with, and I just don't think we'd give him a fair shake.
I made a mistake with him. You know, when he was that 2-year-old, then I had really backed out of competing at all with him, and I held on to him a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, when he was younger than that, yeah, I also didn't push him in those younger years and tried to get. The only hunt that he had ever been in when I sold him was the Blue Tick days, and I won the Young Guns hunt with him.
Yeah,
that's the only hunt he had ever been in. And I was just hunting him around here and didn't want to sell him, and so I hung on to him a little too long to really make him a hot commodity. If I would have pushed him out there at 18 months old or so and won some stuff with him, and you know, he could have been that next dog, and he may still be.
I've changed my mind on putting young dogs in casts. My opinion has evolved over the last 2 years dramatically.
What is it?
Like Con, for instance, I knew I had a freak of nature, and I knew I had something special, so I wanted to baby him around because I was worried about longevity.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to push him yet. I wanted to make sure that he was only in the events I wanted to put him in, that I didn't burn him out in casts. And I've seen, after my podcast with Zach McBee, him and Hunter are the same age. Matt Barnes had a dog out of Trip. Gosh dang, I cannot for the life of me, I can't remember the name of that dog too. And I mean, this dog he was a year younger than Con, and he was at every $30 hunt. I bet you that kid put him in 3 or 4 casts a week from the time he was a year old until he got him. I think he got in the top 4 or 5 or something like that in Super Stakes with him. And I was always preaching it at Barnes. Listen, you're going to burn that dog out. That's a talented dog. This was a good dog, very good dog. So you're going to burn this dog out. He's going to be a mess. And he did. Don't get me wrong, he did. I mean, he pushed him too hard. Zach will tell you that he pushed Hunter too hard. And here I sat with Con, and I did not push him too hard, and the end result was still the same. They still got cast stale at 4 or 5 years, 6 years old.
Yeah.
And they still didn't. And now those 2 dogs are setting at more career earnings than Con is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I've come to the conclusion. I told Jed this the other day. I said, listen, we're going to keep a male pup out of Hazel and Shock. And I've always been better at starting males. I've always had more success with starting a male from the ground up. That alpha male and me seem to get along. And I'm able to mold that into what I want it to be. And I said, we're going to get a male pup out of that. And if he turns out and he gets to where he can win, we're going to ride him until he bucks us every chance we get. We're just going to ride this thing. He's going to be at everything. He's going to be at a Pro Classic every week. He's going to be at all the major events, all the large open events, and when he's burnt out, we're selling him and we're done. So we're not going to coddle him around like we did the other 2 trying to get him back, or the other 10 we've done and try to get him back. The minute he shows us that he's not ready to be in, or he's tired of being in a cast, we're just going to sell him. I think that's the best way to go. I think you get...
Well, see, you just jaded yourself, because when it comes up for sale now, everybody's going to be
fine.
That sucker's blown up.
Well,
we'll give you like $200.
I gave Con away.
That's right, you did.
So I turned down $20,000 for him coming out of his sophomore Super Stakes, and I gave him away when he was 6.
I know you did. That was funny, too.
So, I mean, if I get $1,500 out of it by the time I'm done with it and I've got all the good out of it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because they're still very good pleasure dogs. If you want to take those dogs out by themselves, Ralph, Shock, Dempsey, Con, all those burned out dogs that we've got, they're fantastic to hunt.
Yeah.
But they got to be alone, and it's got to just be you and them. And there's a lot of people that would love to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. But, I mean, they got to be... I've decided that my views have changed, and Matt Barnes, if you're listening to this, you were right. You liked hunting him, you liked winning with him, and he took him until he was burnt out, and then he was done. That's the way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes they come back. Steve Yant's good about getting one back, but I can't get one back.
That's interesting.
I've tried.
I don't know that I've ever put that much thought into it, actually.
Well, when you have 6 of them in a row, you start thinking things over pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
so what's this format for the Super Stakes?
All right, you got to be Super Stakes eligible, and
yep.
so that dog has to be either out of a Super Stakes sire. Now I may mess this up too. If you have any questions, call PKC office. They will clarify. The ladies in there are absolutely fantastic to work with, and they'll answer all your questions. But both parents have to have DNA on file, the sire and the dam, or your pups cannot be Super Staked. We don't have Super Staked sires. We always just pay the whole litter up, and that's an option as well. I believe Finley takes care of this, so I'm going to have to just play it by ear here, but I believe it's a $200 litter Super Stakes application. You pay the litter up. If you sell them, you buy a Super Stakes eligible pup. Before they're 6 months old, you swab them, you send the DNA in, and you get that DNA back, and they are on file and they are eligible to hunt as long as they have won $100 in open events that year, that competition year. Or they can have $500 lifetime winnings, and they're eligible for all 3 years. You don't have to win it in that competition year. So they can be, if they're a PKC champion, they're eligible all 3 years as long as they've been DNA'd, and they were Super Stakes eligible to begin with. It sounds complicated, and it kind of is.
It's not.
Yeah, but it's once you get to doing it, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So you got a Super Stakes pup. The sophomore division is the 1-year-olds, junior division 2-year-olds, senior division 3-year-olds.
Up to 3, right?
Up to, well, some of them are almost 4. They're high 3s.
That's right, because Baby Stakes
really
is
good,
under 1.
Well, see, a really good Super Stakes birthday is November, so you're hunting in September. So your dog, say it's a sophomore, it's still a 1-year-old, but it's going to be 2 in a couple months.
Yep.
And so
that's where that good birthday stuff comes on.
Yeah, but there's also breeder awards. The person that bred that litter, if you do well in Super Stakes, gets a portion of that Super Stakes money. A pretty good check. I think Jed that 1 year with Con's litter, his check was like $5,000-$6,000. Or with Squeaks, or not Squeak, but Shock and Scent and Rain, that crazy litter that he had a huge Super Stakes check. And so the breeder makes some money there too, the sire and the dam. So there's money to be made there for just raising Super Stakes puppies and selling Super Stakes puppies, not just competing too. But you go out. There's 2, like we said before. There's 2 Super Stakes, fall and spring. Spring is usually the second week of April, second, third week, something like that, because I know it falls during Missouri turkey season, much to the chagrin of my son. But you go out and you're competing against dogs that are born within 6 months of your dog. And baby stakes at one point, those are dogs that they won't be a year old until that, the most they can be is 10, 11 months old.
Yep.
And so baby stakes, it's just the weekend. It starts Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then, like we said earlier, the older dogs, the sophomore through the senior division, start on Monday. You go out in the sophomore, senior, junior, and it's just like the World Hunt. You start Monday, you get a double cast win. You have to get a double cast win to advance until Friday. And then you get a double cast win on Friday and a double cast win on Saturday. Most years, it takes 6 cast wins to win the Super Stakes. But you'll get, there's some dogs that are just fantastic at 3 years old, coming 4. That's really their peak. And so you get some really good competition in the senior division. But I remember my first Super Stakes, I was shocked at how good the 1-year-olds are. I took Colin out there as a sophomore, and I thought I would breeze through that thing. And it was hard. I mean, these dogs are very good coon dogs.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go out there with a dog that'll sometimes tree a coon and it's doing pretty well for however old it is and think you're going to compete, because you can't. I mean, it's a difficult hunt to win.
Yeah, I've seen the baby stakes is impressive.
It has evolved. It has evolved a ton in the last 6 years.
I'm going to tell you right now, I hate the baby stakes. I think we push pups way too hard to get them ready for that. I'm speaking from experience. I hunted Jazz in the baby stakes, and
tell us about it. I got to go get me another drink real quick, pal.
Yeah, I just about blew her up. He didn't hit the mute button again. He likes it. But yeah, I just about blew her up just getting her ready for that. She actually shut down on me a couple months after that. But and that's one that I brought back. So you forgot that mute button again, didn't you?
Hey, this is the truth. We don't hide anything.
No, I was just saying I almost blew Jazz up doing that with her, pushing her too hard. But took her out there, and
it's different with females.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You can bring a female back. I don't think you can bring a male back. I can't anyway.
Well, I think that's as much personality as anything. Maybe it's some weird deal. It's like I back off a little bit from the females and give them a little more the old chivalry type thing.
There's something to
I think
that.
I do.
Yeah,
I think I do.
I think there's something to. I treat my females different than I do my male.
I do too.
I think I don't. I'm not saying there's not something to it. I know. Of course, Rain is different and Scent is different because they won me a lot of money. But Duds is running loose out here in the yard, and I just assume kick him as pet him. I hate that dog. And then Rain comes over the house and she's laying on the couch and I'm babying her around, So yeah, we probably treat them differently.
I know I do. But you got any predictions? What's your predictions? What do you think it's going to take to win, and who do you think is going to win it?
It's going to take coons. It always takes coons from baby stakes now even up to the senior division. But I'm not familiar with a lot of the dogs going out. I'm not sure why you just locked up, Josh. I believe the Trump dog that Rusty Jones and Jess Dickerson has is a fall 1-year-old. And you heard me earlier, I called and confirmed with Jeremy that Laura Lee is a fall 1-year-old. And Laura Lee I think she's close to $100,000 already, lifetime earnings between Pro Sport and PKC. She just got second at the swag hunt last night in Lebanon, Kentucky. She's a dog. Of course, Ryan's a friend of mine, so I'm biased. Laura Lee's out of Josie Wales. But despite all that, that has got to be one of the top 3 1-year-olds in the country. I don't see how anybody can keep her out. I really don't.
Yeah.
And then you look at the 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. I always go with handlers. I mean, because if some of these handlers will show up, the Steve Yance and the guys like that will show up with a dog you've never heard of at Super Stakes. They do it all the time, which Ryan, right now, we've heard of what he's hunting. But they show up with dogs all the time. Those guys are going to have a good dog. Weed and Ward and all these guys that are competing at these pro classics, they're going to have something. Joe Manning's probably got something back there that we haven't heard of yet. Him and Cole, I don't know. I should know because me and Joe are buddies, but those guys are going to have something. And so I always look at the handlers. There's handlers that do well at Super Stakes. And those are usually the ones I'm going with when I go to pick them.
And it's not because they're handlers; it's because they know what they got.
It's because they know where to get a dog that they can compete with, and they know how to get it ready.
Yeah, yeah. It's not that they're showing up with some half-assed dog that they're going to handle through it's because they got something. Yeah. They've been keeping quiet, and boom, here they come.
Well, you'll hear a Ward or a Weed or a Mark Gilmore or one of these guys that really know dogs really well, and I'll get a phone call. Hey, I'm looking for a spring 1-year-old, or I'm looking for a fall 1-year-old, or do you know where one's at? And they're looking, and this is usually about 6 months before Super Stakes. I'll get those phone calls, and they'll ask me if I've hunted with anything or if I've been around anything, and that they'll get something found. And those guys get something found, and then they work on it until Super Stakes, and they usually do some damage.
They usually find them.
Yeah.
People find them to hunt that dog.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, dogs that can compete right now are hard to come by. Yeah. Not that there's not a lot of them, but I think there's just more people, looking for it. I think we've always had, the last 4 or 5 years, a good crop of 1, 2, and 3-year-olds, for the Super Stakes. I just think that there's so many people geared towards that event now that those dogs are getting hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I get those phone calls.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you look at the Stollards. The Stollards are going to have something good out there. The Burdens are going to have good dogs out there. Mm-hmm. There's going to be handlers that are going to have something that you've never seen or heard of, and they're going to have $100 one or $200 or $300 one or whatever, and they're going to do out there and do some damage.
Yeah. They come out. They don't have to have something that you've heard of to hurt you. That's for sure.
And one thing I always love about the Super Stakes is it gives the everyman a chance.
Yeah.
Every year there's an everyman, which I like to call just the guy that doesn't have $100,000 worth of lifetime earnings as a handler. He's just been at some local hunts and he's traveled out to Super Stakes, and those guys get deep in Super Stakes every year. There's always 3 or 4 of them that do.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I had a hot pup that I thought I was going to have a real legitimate shot, I think I'd go out and I'd be quiet about it, and I'd get my $100 one and just sit back. Yeah. And not enter him into a bunch of stuff where all the handlers have time to know him and learn him, and if you draw that, Josh, I know that if you drew me, I was hunting the same dog, and you drew me 3 times, you would see the holes in that, and so do the Weeds and all these other guys. So to get this hot pup and then run out there and try to make this big splash and if I had that pup, man, I just lay back with him. Now, it's hard to do if you've got a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But if you're hunting 1-year-old, I'd definitely do that.
Well, it's just like Con. He went out to his sophomore Super Stakes with $112 one.
Yeah.
I put him in enough cast to get his 100 one. And then the only people that even knew that dog existed was the people that I would call to make sure I put that dog in a crowd before I went out there. I'd travel over to Eagleville and hunt with the Gibsons. Or I'd do something like that to make sure that dog was used to being in a crowd, But there's a lot of them guys. Matter of fact, Brian Robertson was a guy that got in the top 6.
What's that senior pay? What's that senior win pay?
I think it's $15,000, if I remember right.
I believe senior pays.
I believe senior pays 15, the junior pays 10, and the sophomore pays 7,500.
Have there ever been any dogs that won multiple Super Stakes?
I believe 9 did, and I know there has been. I think there's been 2 or 3 or a handful. Mm-hmm. But I'm wanting to think, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. They could shoot me an email. But I think 9 did, and nothing else that I know right off the top of my head, but I know they have.
Yeah. And that's a good payout for not only the owner, but it's a good payout for the breeder too.
Yeah. Breeders get paid, owners get paid.
Heck yeah.
It's not much different than what the UKC has, a performance program.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Is it still? I'm not up to par on that.
I'm not as up to par as I get a check because I've got a couple performance litters, but when they win, so
I think that's an underutilized program. I know I underutilized it because the one year I went to a local UKC hunt with duds, and I won, got a first, and I went to an RQE and won it, and then I thought, well, I'll get as night champion, and it took me, I think I got a second and then another first, or something like that. I can't remember what I got, but ended up with I had no idea duds was even performance. I didn't know. I had no clue. And all of a sudden, a few months down the road, I get a check from UKC for like $200 or $300 or something. I thought, well, that's a better payout than hunting at a $50 hunt.
Yeah. It's, and this is, I don't know enough about it to really go into it, but it's one of those deals where when it first started, the payouts were higher, but now that it got diluted, then the payouts are lower. And I don't know how that works. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. But I'll have to ask Alan about that. We need to start performance some, because we have been sending some pups to some guys that hunt a lot of UKC, and so I need to actually get them in the performance program. At least we can get paid for it when they win. Yeah.
You gotta. Are you going to bring up that rule stuff now, or?
Well, we had something in between. What about the thing you read on the interwebs the other day?
Oh yeah, we had the interwebs.
Yeah,
that was actually
on the book face.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I figured that'd be a good. Off the super stakes when we're talking about pups.
You're the leader here. I read something that kind of got me thinking, and it's about the old 80-20 idea. 80%, out of 100 pups, only 20 of them are going to make it, and 80 won't. And I started thinking about that and mulling that over my head and tossing it around and stuff. And I just thought, where did that come from? I even responded that, John, maybe the original poster brought it up, that John Wick had written it, that 20% of the pups will make it. And I thought, man, that book was written in 1985. If we're still there today, then why are we there today? Heath puts that podcast together every Wednesday called The Journey, and the people that he interacts with in the police dog world and performance dog world, they're experiencing 80% success rates and 20% failures. Bart George from Auburn University was on his podcast a few weeks ago. He wouldn't breed a dog that was 20% success rate. So where's that coming from? Why are we still focused on that, stumped on that 20%? I don't think it's accurate, and I think a lot of it falls back on us as a hound hunting community that's the reason. Because if we were talking about 70 years ago when we were starting to develop the tree dog specialist, then yeah, I could buy into that, but we're a long way from there.
Well, the 20% rule, pardon my French, is bullshit. It's that's if you're only doing 20% success rate on a dog that can track and tree a raccoon consistently, turn loose by itself at night, you're doing something seriously wrong. It's either in your breeding protocol or your training protocol. Because at worst, and I've always said that just turning a dog loose and letting it tree a raccoon is a pretty low bar. That's not that hard to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And so if John was talking about 20% can compete at a high level, that's accurate. But if 20% are only making serviceable coon dogs, then you're really, really doing something wrong.
Well, I think what you see parroted a lot of times on the social webs now is, hey, only 20% make it. Well, let's define what make it is first. Mm-hmm. Are we talking about making a world champion? Are we talking about a serviceable, pleasurable dog that you can take out and hunt? And I think that's what the disconnect is in that whole thing is, yeah, we've all got a high bar, and nobody goes out there and starts a pup and says, man, I hope this thing's mediocre.
Yeah, no kidding.
Nobody ever starts there.
There's been a few of them I've started with, like, man, I hope this thing makes mediocre.
Yeah, but I think that's where you have to start is what do we consider making it? Are we not everyone's going to be a superstar.
When someone comes to me about training advice, breeding advice, they have questions, either listener questions or just people that I see at a hunt or whatever. And I always tell them the first thing I ask them, I don't care if it's a retriever, a pointing dog, a coonhound, a lion dog, what are your expectations for the dog? What do you want? What are you trying to get? Are you wanting to compete with the dog? Are you wanting to have something that's fun to hunt with the kids? Are you wanting, a house pet? What do you want? And so that's the first thing we have to establish is what are your expectations for that particular animal? And until we decide that, who's to say what's going to make it and what isn't? I know what my expectations are. And my expectations, 1 out of 10 make it. Now, that's not saying that those other 9 dogs aren't really good coon dogs, to a lot of people. A lot of them are. I've sold dogs that didn't suit me that a lot of people love, and that is great. I'm glad that there's a market out there for a dog that I can sell for pretty good money. I'm not selling these dogs cheap, and they take them, they like them. As long as they're enjoyable and pleasurable to the person that's turning them loose, I consider that made it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think there's a difference in how do you set the bar on that, Josh? 1 out of 10.
I set the bar on, and those are actual numbers. 1 out of every 10 puppies that I raise from the get-go are consistent cast winners at a high level. That's my bar.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of little things, mouth, mannerisms, how they are in the kennel, brains, all that stuff. But all that equates to just one thing: are you a consistent cast winner or not?
Well, did the other 9 not? That's what I'm saying. When we're talking about make it.
Yeah. No, the other 9. I'm going to try to figure this out off the top of my head, but you're looking at Con, Delta, Blinken, Jagger, Biggie, Rhythm. I don't know. There's several others. Ferdinand, my kid named that one. All of those.
So he broke away from the music theme and went straight to French Kings.
Don't ever let your
French Queens.
Don't ever let your kid name a dog.
All
of those you could turn loose at night and treat raccoons with them.
Mm-hmm.
The last one, Son, his name was Wayward Son. So anyway, but Son was the last one I sold that I started. All of them, you could load them in the dog box, drive them down the road, pull them out of the dog box, cut them loose by themselves, and they would go tree a raccoon.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had one in the last 12 or 14 years that wouldn't tree a coon by itself. Candy was another example of that. And then she was a littermate sister to Shock. She would go tree coons. She never did suit me. She wasn't quite good enough, but she would go tree coons.
Mm-hmm. And I can say the same thing. I've lived where I live now for the last 20 years, and every pup that I've started here and raised here has made what I call a serviceable coon dog.
Yeah.
It's something that you can take out and you can enjoy a night in the woods with. Are they going to be super stakes or world champion contenders? Probably, most of them aren't. But the average person can take them and not be embarrassed when they go hunting with their buddies.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the disconnect is what is making it, and what's the definition of making it. And I don't know, man. I still think that and I stated it on the fake book that that 80% is because of the people. The people involved. When a litter of pups leaves here, I have no control of what happens with those pups when they leave here. I don't know how I don't know how they're going to be exposed. I don't know what their foundation is going to be. I don't know if they're going to run loose. I don't know if they're going to sit in a pen until they're 9 months old, and then people haven't done anything with them, and at 12 months old, it's like, well, this thing isn't going to win the baby stakes, so I'm selling it. And then it gets shuffled around. I have no control. Now, the last 3 litters I've raised, then I've been very particular and tried to get them in hands of people that I trusted to not only do the best job with them, but also give me the most honest feedback of how they were going to perform. And so I still say that 80% of it is because of the hands that they fall in. Not everybody, this is the truth, and I'm just going to say it, not everybody has the aptitude to take puppies and train them. Some people are better off grabbing, going out and spending more money and buying a good started dog or a finished dog and enjoying their hunting.
That's what I always recommend to people. Is
do too.
Find something that's already treeing its own coon. And I know they're expensive, but especially right now with all the money that is out there in coon hounds, but you're still money ahead.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving $3,500 to $5,000 for a young dog that's really consistent by itself. It costs more than $3,500 or $5,000 to get that dog to that point for the most part.
Right.
I'm blessed with a situation where, it just takes not as much effort for just the locale that I live in. I've got a good coon population. The dogs have good facilities as far as where they can run. I have a program that I try to follow with most of my dogs, which most of my dogs are bred the same way, so I don't get a lot of surprises. I have a pretty good idea what that pup's going to be like. Of course, you're never going to nail it every time, but I got a pretty good idea what that pup's going to be like before I ever get my hands on it. Especially when I just got done checking on Hazel again. She's due any day. I know Hazel's kind of a different sort because that is a female that we bought, but most of the females that we breed we raised ourselves, and most of the males that we breed we raised ourselves. And so you got a pretty good idea of what you're getting your hands on before you ever even start messing with it.
One of the things that I see that I don't understand, and I've had several people contact me, it's like, do you have a female pup available? Do you have a female? I only want a female.
Mm-hmm.
And I always respond with, why do you want a female? Well, I want to raise a litter of pups. And the message to start, how many litters have you raised? What's your plans? Do you have somebody that's going to help you select the sire? Am I going to be able to help you select the sire? Can I help you with this? And, it's I know you got to start somewhere, so I'm not trying to sound like an elitist because I'm no breeder, at all. But I do study dogs. I do try to find dogs I would much rather have a good dog out of a solid litter than a superstar out of a dud litter.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times these females and males, both, if you take, I don't care what it is, if you take you take that dog and you win the super stakes with it or the world hunt with it, at that point it does not matter what any other pup in that litter has done. They could all have been duds in the best houndsman hands, and they were all they were all calls. That world champion is going to get bred.
Yeah.
And so when I say it's people, there it is again. We have flocked to that world champion and bred these females to it when that male dog or that female dog that we're breeding to, their individual talents have nothing to do with their reproductive ability.
I think that and you know just as well as I do that I can only speak for the Walker breed. I am an idiot when it comes to all the others. But as far as the Walker breed goes, the Pro Classics have helped that a ton, because a lot of these dogs aren't getting bred until they're late in their career. Because it's, you know just as well as I do that sometimes breeding a male is going to change the way that he interacts in a cast. A lot of guys that are on a hot streak with a male, they're not going to stop in breeding. Females are the same way. They don't want to take 4 months off to raise pups.
Right.
They're gonna keep pushing that female. So a lot of these dogs are getting bred later in life, and we know exactly what they are. I mean, we know it's not just a dog that got on one big run out at the World Hunt. It's a dog that's won consistently for 4, 5, 6, sometimes even 7 years now.
But how much do we pay attention to what their litter mates have done?
Probably not enough. And there are some examples of dogs that are solid reproducers with not a great litter, but as a general rule, I look for the same thing you do. That's why we bred Shock to Hazel instead of Trader. Thought of Trader semen crossed our mind with her too, but Shock's out of one of the greatest litters ever. There were only 6 of them, and 5 of them made at least silver champion.
Yeah.
There's 3 platinum champions, 1 gold champion, and a silver champion. That's almost gold.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty good litter of coon dogs.
That's a pretty solid litter of coon dogs.
And Shock hasn't been bred much for what he is. And so that was why we made that decision. Con was another reason that we bred to Con to Dream, because Con came out of a fantastic litter.
Yeah.
And so that's something definitely to consider, and that's something I look at too. But there's a few dogs out there that maybe their litter mates didn't have the chances that they did, or something like that.
Again, there you go.
Yeah. And so that's something you got to consider too. Some dogs don't get the chances that they should get.
I know it. I know. You're exactly right. And
we just spoke about Mongo.
I can tell you that litter, the first litter did not go. And that's kind of what got me kicked onto this path that I'm on now. If I raise a litter of contacting people and say, hey, will you take a pup? I've got this litter, will you take a pup? I don't think I've advertised any, and like I said, I'm not a big breeder, but I haven't advertised anything either. I let some people know that I've got a litter coming, and they know somebody or whatever, and they contact me, and it's like, hey, and man, I hate to sound like this, but I feel like that's part of my dog's legacy and my legacy riding on that pup, and my responsibility to make sure that pup has the absolute best chance they have. So I'm not trying to be a snob about it. It's just something that I feel obligated to do to make sure that they get in the right hands.
Yeah, I know we've got 3 of these pups out of Hazel booked that we're giving away. And we know where they're going, and we know they're good pup names. Jeff Jackson calls me, and he wants a pup. He's going to get a pup, and he's not going to have to pay for it.
Right.
There's people like this. Waylon Morrell calls me right now. He started a couple of stuff out of my stock. He calls me right now and says, hey, I want one of them Shock Hazel pups. He's getting one.
Right.
I'm not going to charge him nothing.
There you go.
Rhythm, for
An
instance.
Advertisement.
Yeah, Rhythm, for instance. I raised her until she was 3.5 months old. She went out to Waylon. He hunted her for a little bit. I got her bought back for a song and a dance, and finished her out and sold her for pretty good money.
Yeah.
And we got the opportunity to buy those dogs back if we want them bad enough. And so we always try to do our best to put them in good hands. We sell enough to go ahead and pay for super staking them, raising them, shots, wormers, stuff like that. But we also kind of pick and choose who we're selling them to. And we also price them really high because we don't want somebody to just sit out there and waste them. And I think that makes a difference.
That's a good point too. You sell these pups cheap, or you give them away to whoever will take them, and there's no value in it for them.
You look at what we had to spend to get this litter of pups on the ground. I mean, Jed had to take Shock. I can't handle Shock because me and him don't get along, but Jed had to take Shock.
Yeah.
Breed him, Jed had to buy his mother for a really good chunk of change, raise that litter, won $60,000 on shock, and probably spent $70,000 doing it. Made the dog where he is. He's still feeding him today and taking care of him today. We had to get Hazel purchased, and of course shock we raised, but Hazel we purchased. There's a lot of money involved going into just making a single cross. These aren't just a brood female picked up for $300 and then bred to the hottest stud dog on the planet.
Yeah.
We got a lot of money invested in this litter, so we're not going to sell them cheap. And I don't think you can, because that's one of the reasons they get wasted.
Yep, I agree, man. But I think it goes back. I still say that, when Wick wrote that,
it was a different time.
We were talking about 1985. We're talking about, would that have been 35 years from when, the Coonhound registries really kicked off and we started keeping close pedigrees. And talk about 40 years, I guess, going back in the mid 1940s. But
even then, big game guys wouldn't settle for 80-20.
No. And that's the thing, Josh. I mean, I look around the world. Bird dog guys don't settle for 80% call rate. Mm-hmm. Police dog guys don't. Cattle dog guys don't. So, why are we just throwing our hands up and saying, well, they say that only 20% are going to make it, so you just got to get down the road. I'm not buying it.
Well, when you look at I've trained, and don't get me wrong, there's levels to everything. I've not trained an elite retriever, but I've trained a good retriever. I've not trained an elite bird dog that could go out and be a national champion and shoot to retrieve, but I've trained a good bird dog. It's so much easier than a hound.
It really is,
it's
and that's one
easier.
Thing.
And a lot of my breeders, Sean Riddle is a friend of mine, or Bruce Murphy, or these guys that are training pointing dogs, or some of my retriever buddies and stuff, and they will tell you that same thing. They're with their dog, they see their dog, they can react to what they're seeing instead of just hearing. It's a lot easier to train one of those than it is a coonhound.
You better believe it, and that's one point that I made in this post is what we're asking our dogs to do. I mean, it's more difficult than police dog training.
Yeah.
I'm with that dog when I'm training it.
Yeah.
It's the farthest it's away from me is 100 yards. It's never out of my visual sight.
No.
And what we're asking these dogs to do, so to expect 80% success rate might be a little bit high, but 60 to 70% at this stage in the game, after concentrated breeding efforts and stuff for almost 80 years now, just 80 years of record keeping, I don't think that's unreasonable.
I don't either. And you also look at those other breeds, and they've been bred and trained for a lot longer than, especially the Treeing Walker.
Yeah.
They've been, how long have we had Labrador retrievers and Chesapeake Bay retrievers and English setters and English pointers and Australian cattle dogs and border collies?
That's right.
Those guys have had multiple generations more chance to either manipulate their dogs genetically or through training than we have.
Well, you take the sidehounds that Seth is hunting.
Yeah, they've been doing
we're talking about 10,000 years.
Yeah, Jesus probably had those things.
Yeah, you're right.
We're behind the bar on that, and it's also a more difficult thing to do for a dog to track something and tree something and do it the way we want it.
Yep.
And so
no argument there.
You're always gonna have a lower success rate with a hound than you are a Labrador retriever. I mean, that's always going to be lower. I don't see any way around it, just for the simple fact that we're asking them to do way more.
Agreed. I agree.
I'm glad we got that hashed out. We're solving the world's problems just one Facebook post at a time, pal.
We really are. Yeah. It does provide some interesting topics to discuss on a podcast.
Yeah. And we go back to the brood female thing. There's no such thing. A brood female is just something that nobody hunted hard enough to figure out what she was.
We'll have to tackle that on another podcast.
Yeah, because that could be another hour. I'm anti. You don't ever see any brood males.
I could show you some.
Probably your plots.
No, plots don't live long enough if they can't perform.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep. What do you got?
I got.
What do you got from your side?
I got
rules.
That's
what we need. We need more rules in our lives.
Well, I'm going to clarify a couple.
Okay.
And this is only in the Professional Kennel Club. This is via Mr. Shane Patton, and this is. I'm the only reason I'm highlighting these is because I was right. I've seen some posts. Go ahead.
More Facebook posts?
It was actually a Facebook post.
See? There you go.
There's also a post on the, which I'm not as familiar with the UKC rules because I don't hunt it as much. But the UKC rules have got to be pretty similar. And I know Cheyenne Cummings, who does hunt a lot of PKC, or in UKC, is a very good judge and a very good handler. He said in UKC, and this may very well be the case, the question was, a dog is struck in, you walk away from it, you get back to where you're supposed to hear it, you start the 8, and that handler is allowed to walk towards his dog for that 8 minutes using his Garmin. And I disagreed with that. I would not judge that if I was in a UKC cast that way because you're not allowed to use the Garmin to score a dog. And in my opinion, walking towards that dog via the Garmin is technically you're in the act of scoring that dog.
Yes. And
so that's how I interpreted it, and that's mostly coming from the PKC side. And I had some questions with that in a cast earlier too, and I've seen that question come up on Facebook. So I called Shane, and I said, hey, we walk away from a dog trailing, we go score a tree. You're not allowed to start that 6 until you walk back to the last place you heard that dog. Everybody knows that. So I walk back to the last place I heard that dog, and I start the 6, and it is that handler's 6, but we can only walk towards the last place we heard that dog. If that dog is 2 miles behind us now, I'm not letting you use your Garmin to walk towards him. We're not allowed to use the Garmin for anything as far as scoring goes in PKC. And you are in the act of scoring that dog. And so I clarified that with Shane. He said I have been judging that correctly as far as he knows, and that is the way I will continue to judge it. And so if any of you guys that are coming up at these Pro Classics that I'm getting ready to judge, or if you draw me out at the World Hunt, you're not using your Garmin to walk towards that dog. We're only going to walk towards the last place we heard it, and that's how I'm going to continue to score it.
I'm going to share a story about that.
Okay.
We had gone to, Donnie and I were pushing big country, and we had gone up to Ashland for the spring classic or whatever it was that they had up there. And we're sitting around the motel room, and I said, man, there's an RQE over at Peru, Indiana. It'll only take us, a few hours to get there. Let's just load up and go over there and get this dog qualified. We got over there, drew out, and went to the woods, and country's behind me working. There was a little female in the cast that was out in front of us that had been struck. We went and scored a tree from on country, walked back out into the field, and the guy had lost track of his dog and started the 8. And so he started walking towards his dog using his Garmin. I said, we're not walking that way so you can get within hearing. We're back at the place that you heard him the last time the 8 started. And the answer was, well, it's my 8. I can do whatever I want.
Yep.
And I said, no, you can't. We're back to the place where, so anyway, it went to a cast vote. Everybody voted that he could go that way. We ended up walking all the way across this field, out of hearing of country behind us, and walked in on top of this dog. To this day, Donnie still talks about me getting out-handled by a bunch of 17-year-old kids.
The 17-year-old kids are tough, bud. Let me tell you. They know their stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just a classic example directly related to what you were talking about.
Now, according to a lot of people that I respect and like in UKC, you can use that garment to walk towards your dog. But I don't interpret that way. And I'm not
I couldn't convince them that way that night, that's for sure.
No, but as far as I'm concerned, you can't use that garment to do anything in a cast other than see where your dog is at.
Yeah.
And the judge you can show me your garment all you want. I can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so and it is the handler's 6 or the handler's 8, they are allowed to walk, but they're only allowed to walk towards the last place we heard that dog. That's how I always judge it.
What about the part of the rules that say splitting the difference?
You always have to split difference, and that's a very common occurrence in PKC when the dogs are split up. It's something that I always try to maintain throughout the cast. If you got one here that's 200 yards in front of you trailing and one that's a mile behind you trailing, you're going to walk towards that one until you're dang near out of hearing of the other. You want to try to make sure and stay within hearing distance of all the dogs. But it's just something as a judge you really got to be mindful of.
Yeah. Judging's tough. I mean, if you're, I think it's if you've got any integrity in you at all, if you're a hunting judge, it's really tough.
Yeah.
A non-hunting judge is extremely tough.
Non-hunting judge is much easier.
I agree.
Than a hunting judge, and I beg when I'm at an open event or I'm in an early round of a major event to don't let me judge. Now, there are times where I've let somebody else judge and asked not to, and I'm thinking, man, I wish I would have judged this cast.
Right.
We wouldn't be in this fiasco. But most of the time I try not to hunt if I'm a hunting judge because, especially in a pro classic or something like that, Finley's paying the entry, and I'm at a disadvantage if I'm judging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get sucked in under trees looking for coons,
yes.
And
if it was
your dog.
If it was my money, it wouldn't bother me as much. But when I'm hunting on someone else's, I'm trying to really make sure they get the value out of that entry fee. And
That's exactly right.
They're not getting as much value if I'm having the judge.
I drew Vapor one year at the PKC World. Tony Smith, that dog's tough. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
All the events we were at together, and I never did draw Vapor.
He's nice. He's real nice.
I had some friends that drew him and stuff, but I never got to draw him.
Yep. And getting sucked in under trees, and the cast isn't obligated to get, the cast members aren't as obligated to get in as close as you are. And
well, just in PKC where you can go get your dog by yourself and handle it, especially when it's hot or something like that. And a lot of times you're not able to do that as a judge. And so, you're leaving your dog treed there untethered, and anything could happen.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. We hunt dogs that'll stay treed all night for hours upon hours. You have to compete at that level. But when they get treed and their 5's up, I want to be right there.
Yeah.
Because anything could happen. A coon could jump, something wild. Dog can get too hot and the 2 catch it. You never know.
Right. Yeah, it seems like every time I would go to a major event, and there were hunting judges, then I was put down as the judge.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, Jerry was terrible about it. And then he'd pronounce my name wrong.
Do what?
He'd pronounce my name wrong and then make me judge. Hey, Josh Michaelis, come get your card. I finally told him at the Labor Day Classic one year, I said, Jerry, if you don't learn my name, I ain't freaking judging for you ever again.
Oh, Jerry, man, he is a good egg, though.
Yeah, I always got along pretty good with Jerry.
Yeah. Yep. What other rule you got? You said rules.
Oh, yeah, I got the 2-minute rule on the trees, too. That was something that needs clarified. And I might have to ask Jerry about this, because I seen somewhere where he said that a handler can walk there, too. Say you're walking to a tree, dog shuts up, you put the 2 on it, you want to stop and listen and make sure it doesn't break. And I've seen somewhere before, and Jerry may correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the handler's 2 as well. And I've never judged it that way either, because if you can tree that dog and I take your call, then I'm not there. Now there have been times where I've had people stop me at the bottom of a hill when I tree deep and tell me to put the 2 on, which that's a question, and you put that up to a cast vote anyway. or a windstorm picks up, or the rainstorm comes or something in here. But I would never do that to a handler, as a hunting judge or a non-hunting judge. If a dog is tree deep and I'm on top of a hill and I hear it clearly and I take the call, I'm not going to walk down to the bottom of it where you can't hear that dog and then put the 2 on them.
Exactly.
And most judges, I've only ran into that circumstance maybe once or twice in my entire career.
I've ran into it both ways. I've ran into it where I've felt like that guides or judges were trying to walk me the long way to my dog out of hearing, and then have them try to put the 2 on me.
Yeah.
And then I've also...
There's a handler tip with that, too. If you think that's happening, you stop immediately and say, look, we'll walk around if it's easier, or if we want to walk to a road and walk down the dog or something, but you're not putting the 2 on me if we walk one step away from my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been, as a handler, I've always done that. As a judge, I've always said, look, guide says we can get to this dog faster walking out away from it a little bit and then walking back down a road or back a path or something like that. I'm not going to put the 2 on you for 4 or 5 minutes of walking.
Right.
And, so I make sure and clarify that before we ever take off.
Yeah, you run into that deal where it's like, somebody's like lagging behind and they're yelling out to the judge, hey, you need to put the 2 on that dog. You need to put the 2 on that dog. We can't hear him. And at that point, a good judge is just going to turn around and say, hey, I'm the judge. I figure out when we need to put the 2 on him.
Yep.
Appreciate your input, but we're at a disadvantage to hear that dog. We put ourselves there. The dog didn't put us there. We put ourselves there. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get to the best advantage point and make a call then.
Yeah. No,
because so many times I've walked.
If I take a tree call, I can hear that dog.
Yep.
Well,
you're supposed to.
Exactly. I'm not. And there has been a couple times where a handler got me, and now I'm not. That happens too. A good handler's going to sneak one in on you every now and then, and I'm not mad about it or nothing. That's my mistake for taking that call. I don't put that on the handler for taking a chance and trying to do what's best for his dog as much as I put that on the judge for doing it. I've seen a lot of judges get talked into hearing a dog that they don't hear.
Yeah.
And good handlers can do that.
Well, a good handler also, when you're talking about walking your 2, they know that when their dog starts getting a little bit hot, they're going to start chewing.
Yeah.
Or they know when a dog. I'll tell you where it really happened was with the squirrel dog competitions. Mm-hmm. You start walking into this dog, and the dog shuts up, and you know what he's doing. He's off the tree milling around and smelling logs and everything else. But as soon as they hear you coming, man, they're back on there, and they're just and so they want to get there, and I want people to get there too. I want to get to my dog. So
I'm not trying to minus somebody on a tree super hard with the 2 catch them, especially when it's hot.
Yep.
When it's super hot, I'll even tell the handlers. I said, look, I'm going to be lax on starting the 2. The dog's going to have to be pretty quiet for quite a while before I'm going to start and put the 2 on it. It's 90 degrees out here. I get it.
Yep.
And it's not good for that dog to stop every 50 yards, put the 2 on it, and take 20 minutes to get to that tree.
No.
And so I'm slow on the 2 when it's hot. I'll minus a dog quick when it's moving, but it's something where as a judge you have to understand the circumstances and the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure.
I think that's all I got. You got anything else, pal?
Nope, I haven't got anything, man.
We solved a lot of issues today.
We really did, and I think people can. Are we going to give marriage advice next truth, or what are we going to do?
I'm the wrong guy to ask for that. I can promise you that.
Do you know anybody that maybe could?
Not any coon hunters, no. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Hoop Franklin the other day, and I said there's 2 types of coon hunters in this world. Those that are divorced and those that are getting ready to be. I said hard hunters.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, man. All right. I'm good.
All right. I'm good, too, Chris. Thanks for sitting down with me, and thanks for everybody listening. This is The Truth on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network.